this episode of the Growth Catalyst podcast, I speak with Peter Cross, who is the author of Start with the Customer. Peter reflects on his long career shaping the customer experience for some of the great UK brands, Lewis Waitrose. He now spends time advising huge brands. He's the long-term business partner of Mary Portas. Peter wrote Start with the Customer after watching what he believed was the UK slide into a long descent of lack of customer satisfaction. Cross argues that service knits communities and drives superior business results, and he describes his work as being of service to others. His core philosophy is that customer service is cultural, not procedural. It's not a customer washing exercise. You should build empowered, listening organisations that start with real customer needs. On the flip side, he also talks about customer behaviour and how we've never been so badly behaved. But Cross says leaders who obsess over closing the gap between customers' expectations and the lived reality, the reality of that customer experience, is how organisations will win. I hope you enjoy. Today's episode, I am joined by Peter Cross, who is a customer behaviour expert and author of Start with the Customer. Peter, thank you very much for joining me.
My pleasure, Collette. Thanks for having me.
Very excited about this. So, for our listeners, could you give us a potted history of yourself, an introduction to you and your background?
Well, I've been in the service of customers for quite a few years, let's just say. And that's kind of going in-house with a large organization, working in various markets, different territories, different kinds of businesses, high street businesses, luxury businesses, servicey businesses. I've run my own practice with a business partner for 10 years, fabulous fun. I then went into Lewis Waitrose, which of course is the standard bearer for customer excellence. So I looked after customers in Lewis Waitrose. And then for the last couple of years, I've been sort of doing my own thing, preaching the benefits of great customer experiences to anyone who'll listen.
So what would you say is your area of expertise then?
You should never tell anybody what your expertise. It's for others to judge your expertise, isn't it? Generally, but if you pushed me, and I was in a braggy frame of mind, I would say, I'm curious. Probably, I'm very curious, which means I'm constantly learning, and I'm interested in what makes people tick, what makes customers tick, what makes society tick, I suppose, and that's led me to see and understand, hopefully, the importance of customer behavior and customer experience more generally. So I've been an observer, I've been a curious observer of people, of customers, and that's meant, if I can say, if you want to call me an expert for that, that's probably my thing.
There's a reason why we're having this conversation. So what drew you to this area, to unpacking customers and their requirements?
I mean, it was a bit in the DNA. So my grandfather was a grocer. My grandfather had a shop. My dad was in business too, looking after customers. So it was in the genes. The desire to serve. Not everybody, Colette's born to serve. The customer knows pretty quickly whether the person in front of them is in the right job. Maybe they're meant to be elsewhere in the business, because you can really quickly get a sense of actually they love people, they love, they're sociable, they're interested, they're curious. So it was right from the start. This thing was in there, and then as I went through business, and you start learning, and you lead bigger teams, it was this element of delighting, surprising, retaining customers that floated my boat more than anything else, I think. So I didn't realize that something in the genes actually impacts you, but it was certainly there from the start and has stuck with me.
And do you know why you love what you do?
I think it's customer service, is incredibly easy to underestimate as kind of being nice to people, and it's easy to overlook in the internal battle for investment within the business, because there's so many other toys to play with today. Or you redefine customer service as getting things faster, but that's not what it is. Customer service is actually what holds certainly society, communities together. It's the web of interactions between a customer and a business. Joyous, educational, inspirational, connecting. And so I suppose I saw it in that much larger way. I saw its power in great businesses, and now as I work with the Institute of Customer Service, which is the body that basically measures customer satisfaction across every sector in the UK. So I really do see it close now, and I see those businesses that invest in it consistently winning. So not only is it a lovely thing for society, it's clearly a great thing for business.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, author of Start with the Customer. So why did you feel compelled to write the book?
I don't know. I missed this. It's probably a bit of an age thing. I don't know. I mean, you're clearly much older than you, Collette, so you're not there yet. But you can reach a sort of a little when you get a little bit older, and you start to think about, okay, where am I in life, and what have I achieved, and is it worth me writing any of this stuff down? And I did it before AI became everything. So it was a thing, but it wasn't everything, which it appears to be now. So I did do it on my own, without a whisper of AI sort of assistance. I'd seen some data which showed that customer satisfaction, which is what we measure, have been in steady decline for the past 10 years across every single customer-facing sector: energy, insurance, transportation. And that data propelled me, if you like, to get down on paper my thoughts about how to build a world-class service culture.
So, so back to service then, wanting to write it down, wanting to gather that knowledge and wanting to share it.
So, yeah, I think it is, and it's hard. Customer service, Collette, isn't easy. Not only is it difficult in a complicated business environment, but it's difficult for the person giving it, because customers are more badly behaved than we've ever been. We're stealing more, we're being more selfish in our behaviors, and we are taking it out on those who serve us sometimes. So it's hard to be in the business of service. So I thought, if I can write a book that not only motivates people but also explains how you build a service culture, then this is probably a good time to do it.
Okay, well, that's interesting. So, what are the core skills and the knowledge that you would draw on in this delivery of excellent customer service?
The, if you like, the elevator pitch, as they say, for the book, or the sort of the shorthand, is that not only is customer service not rocket science, I'm not intelligent enough, Collette, to write a very clever book about anything, but because customer service is the art of the bleeding obvious. Treat people as you would be treated. It is as simple as that. That I thought I could have a go at sort of writing a book about service, and I say the elevator pitch, if you like, the shorthand for people who've not got time to go and buy it, is that customer service is cultural. Customer service is cultural. It's not about rules. It's not about commandments. It's not about telling people what to do. It's about building an empowered, enabled service culture, which starts with the customer rather than starting with your product or your capabilities or your leadership, or your purpose or whatever else is driving your business. You literally putting the customers center stage, rather than pretending to. There's a lot of businesses, get involved with what I would call customer washing, which is the art of pretending to start with the customer. Customer at the heart. Customers, everything we do. Most businesses will say that. Far fewer will actually do it in practice.
Yeah, I mean, you said that customers are more badly behaved than ever. But I suppose on the flip side of that, just to be a little contrarian, is organizations, it feels that they are less accountable. So I'm neurodiverse, I'm ADHD. If I want to cancel a subscription that I've signed myself up to, or even just change broadband suppliers or gas or something, I find that process sometimes with some organizations incredibly difficult to do so, and it feels that there's no one accountable. You've got no one to turn to be able to have help, to be able to help address my problems. Is that kind of the core of how you're trying to get into these organizations and fix that?
Yeah, the reason I mentioned badly behaved customers is in the interest of having a balanced conversation, because service is a two-way street. We have a responsibility as customers to recognize those who are serving us, because it's hard. But that said, we are living in an age where service levels and customer satisfaction is declining. And all the energy, because customer service has become a process to some extent, because it's been so digitized and so automated that it's a process. And when the process works, it's fabulous. And all the energy has gone into the process, which means all the energy largely has gone into selling, ensuring you don't lose the customer on the digital journey. Far less of the energy has gone into serving. And what happens afterwards, and what happens if things go wrong. And the only test of the customer experience, which really matters, is when things go wrong. And that's what the customer's saying. It's fine until it's not, and for some people who are more neurodivergent, then their needs are different. For them, they expect a business to be listening and watching and moderating and changing the experience to suit them. But that's not what's happening. And I do linger on this point that we as customers, we chose speed over service. We voted with our feet and we said we want things faster and faster and faster and faster. It's a bit like the newspapers, we keep reading the newspapers, even though they annoy us. But the whole thing, so we're feeding the machine. I only think it's very easy to say business has got it wrong. They need to start with the customer. But for me to be, I think, authentic and true and credible, I need to say that we are in this together.
But completely agree with that. So what are the harder things to do? So for organizations, if you're sort of in consulting with, working with an organization, what are the really tricky things to focus on?
Culture is one of those things that it dare not speak at its name. The businesses that I've are very comfortable talking about our values. We've got a new set of leadership values, and these are them. And we've got 5. There was 5 on them. 5 values, and we've done lovely little logos for each of them, and a nice little strap line as our mission, our purpose. And that bit's quite easy. But when it comes to culture, which is kind of owned by everybody, the conversation's always more difficult. Because when they've got good culture, businesses are very loud and vocal about it, But when the culture is bad, it's kind of swept under the carpet, So the job of culture often sits with HR, which is very unfair, because it is the job of all leaders to build a great culture. Because customer service is cultural, it is dependent on everybody, but it's particularly dependent on the top. And all the businesses. Yeah, sorry.
No, please go.
And all I was going to say was that all the businesses that I met, and in the book, at the end of each chapter, I interviewed with Joe Causal, his chief executive at the Institute. We interviewed a leader. So the chief executive of First Direct, Jet2, Ocado, great, consistently customer-focused businesses. And you could feel from the first second of the conversation that the chief executive cared about customers. And that trickles down and influences the entire organization.
Interrupted there and getting carried away. So an organization that's led by someone who's obsessed with customer or culture, have they got a usual path? Is there a type of character or a usual flow of type of person that ends up driving this culture?
I think it's difficult to say where, because all the leaders that we spoke to were all very different, running very different organizations with very different challenges. But they certainly all had the ability to empathize with customers. They had the determination to truly listen to the information that was coming from customers by spending time with them, not just spending time with the data, not just looking at the chart that says 87% of customers are pretty reasonably satisfied. They were obsessed with the 13% who were pulling their hair out, and they were listening to them, be it on the doorsteps or be it in the vans when they're driving around, or on the planes or the trains, or wherever their customers were, was where they were spending time and where they were telling their leadership to spend time. So it was an obsession with building a listening culture.
That's really interesting. It's probably a really unfair question, and I don't feel you have to answer. Have you got any sort of poster child organizations that you go, right, you should behave like this, and these are there's a blueprint in here? Or is it not that simple?
I think it's really important to give concrete examples, and it is because I do a little bit of public speaking, so it's always the question at the end, which is actually it's normally one of the bad ones. That's normally the question, rather than which are the good ones. Who are the real rotters in the world of customer service? But the good ones are easy because they're the ones that we interviewed. I am obsessed with Octopus Energy, because in a really hard sector, with lots of badly behaved businesses, Octopus Energy are determined to do something different, and that's not easy for them. So I love Octopus Energy, and I love what First Direct are doing in the financial sector. I obviously love John Lewis, because it's where I spent 10 years of my own career, and I love Jet2, which is a surprising one to say, because you don't naturally think of them as the world's favorite airline. But the truth is, the world has got different favorite airlines now than it used to have, and Britain's favorite airline is Jet2, because they are genuinely obsessed with customers, and I've seen it firsthand.
That's really interesting. I wasn't expecting that. So Octopus, so listen to, is it Greg Jackson? Is that the CEO there? So listen to some of the stuff that he talks about. I think the most profound thing he said is, we don't do lots of research. We don't do kind of market research groups. We have constant data points with every single interaction with our customer, and we literally got our finger on the pulse all the time. So we don't have to pivot. We don't have to react. We are tracking what's going on. That can't be easy.
They have a listening organization. They are constantly in the conversation. And as they get bigger, of course, it's increasingly more challenging. But they are, they're different, and they are deeply empowered. So if you work at Octopus Energy, you are enabled and empowered to make decisions on behalf of the business to satisfy your customers. So that that again is the true test of a great service culture, where people are empowered to make decisions. They're complicit in delivering great customer outcomes.
Yeah, that's fascinating. So again, that can't be easy. So that empowerment, I guess, must come from everybody understanding what the mission is, what the strategy is, their part, and their bit part, their cog inside of that whole mission. Like that's huge.
Yeah, it is huge. And of course, then it's dependent on leadership, because the leader of those people holds in their hands the ability to truly empower that team. And not all leaders are made that way.
No. So so if you're with a leader, so what kind of questions would you expect the leader to ask of their leadership team in order to sort of fulfill this ambition of truly customer-centric service?
You would want them to be able to coherently, consistently talk about customers to start with. So their stories are real because they've actually spent time with customers and they know firsthand what the customer's lived experience is. I talk about the gap, Collette, the gap between customer expectation. So this is what I hope the business will be like. Customers don't think about this stuff. It's all, going on the back of their heads. But these are my needs, if you like. This is what I'm looking for. My expectation of the business is the stuff I'm hoping is the way I hope they'll deliver it, if you like, and certainly my measure of success. And then there's my lived experience. And the gap between customer expectation and customer lived experience is where the problems lie. It's where the complaints going. So I suppose an answer to your question is that great leaders will be preoccupied, will be obsessed with closing the gap between customer expectation and customers' lived experience. So there's no gap. And that fundamentally means all the things that we started to talk about.
Do you have a framework or a set of tools that you can help these leadership teams overcome that or to close that gap?
Funnily enough, I do. Because the book is at the end of the day is sort of a handbook, if you like. I hope it's written in a way that's not boring, because too many business books get bored but don't get read because they're just really a bit boring. And service is fun, service is about people, in a digital world. This stuff actually, because customers are still humans, and the technology is being managed by humans. So it's kind of, I hope it's been written in a way that is accessible and fun and easy and makes you smile, or makes you angry, but it makes you feel something. And the frameworks it's full of exercises and tasks and whatever. But the unique framework that I think is interesting, which is I think quite unique, and me maybe being a bit sort of clever for my own good. But you've heard of Abraham Maslow, who was, of course, the patron saint, as I call him, of customer needs, or human needs in his case. And he created a framework that really started to understand how human needs could be fulfilled. So my framework is about customer needs, and I call it the lexicon of customer need. And what I've tried to do, because the truth is, you have to understand customer needs to know what their expectations are. Everything starts with customer needs, but not that many businesses start with customer needs. They often start with, like we said, product, the purpose, whatever. So the framework of the lexicon of customer needs establishes my view of the 23 most important customer needs and arranges them into a lexicon, into a list of basic needs, core needs, transactional needs, fundamentally when you're shopping or transacting or buying something online. Interactional needs, which perhaps are filled in the real world. It might be on a plane. It might be online as well in a contact center. Sometimes you want to slow it down a little bit as opposed to speed it up. And then higher needs, which are often fulfilled in, more by luxury brands and so on. The idea being that you have to, the customer is working along the lexicon. They expect your basic needs are sorted, but you as a business have to fix basic core needs before you're permitted to move along the lexicon. So it's a framework that the businesses that I spoke to found interesting, because the task is which of these needs are the core needs of your customer, and of course they change depending on the environment, time of the week, whether you're alone, and where you are on the shopping journey. But nodding.
That's straightforward enough, but I know it's not that simple. So, just think about current market realities and kind of what's going on out there. Are there any particular pressing challenges that you're facing, or sort of groups of challenges that you're seeing your clients are facing?
One of the only thing that everyone's talking about, of course, is AI. And we're going beyond the testing and learning phase into building these technologies into everyday life and business experience. Some of it, of course, is breathtakingly exciting, but you can't have blind faith in technology. We should have learned that by now. Whether it's something really sort of catastrophic, of which there are many examples, or the day-to-day reality of customers when they're going, a lot of these chatbots that have been brought in are lousy. Someone who's pretending to be called Sue or Janine, who isn't, and is actually incapable of giving me anything that I want apart from me spiraling me around. And so not calling out when poor technology isn't helping the customer experience, but because somebody somewhere is invested in this thing, you have to have blind faith in it. It's the same for a lot of contact centers. The sort of multiple option, 25 option contact centers, haven't satisfied the customer need. They've just sent them into a spin. Customers have been very clear, and they're calling out some of these technologies have not helped them. So the preoccupation is, how do we really ensure that the new technologies are helping the customer, as opposed to just helping the business to remove people from the experience, to the point there might be nobody left. There may be nobody left.
Yeah.
Contact centers are sort of empty. The shops are empty, and all we have is AI, which might not necessarily be a good thing.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's that difference between helping the customer or helping the business shave cost, or whatever it may be. So how would you guide leaders to navigate that? Because we see lots of examples where AI policy doesn't even exist in organizations, and it's a bit of a dirty secret still. How do you ensure that businesses are deploying it or understanding it well enough to deploy it well?
Listen to the customers. The customers will tell you. Well, they'll tell you on the third time. Problem with customers, like people, like anything, you've got to ask a few times, because the first time you ask a customer, they go, "No, it's fine," because largely they want to go on with their lives. It's the problem with all these have your say studies, is that most people want to just get through them as quickly as possible to win the 250 quid prize that they know they'll never win. But so you've got to ask again and again and again to really get under the skin of what they think. So you've got to listen, and you've got to be brutally honest if it's not worked. I talk about in the book about self-serve checkouts. that made enormous promises about gliding seamlessly through checkout. Just everyone's just gliding in and out. But the truth is they're not, because they are always malfunctioning. They are full of security gates because there's an increase in shoplifting. So once you've glided through the thing, you've then got lots of other gates that you've got to try and get out of, because businesses are suffering because everyone's stealing a lot more than they used to. It's easy to steal. And they're pretty, on a big shop, they're miserable. If you've got a loaded and you're sitting there, swiping away as the customer, it's a soulless, you're basically, you're doing the work that somebody used to do for you in return for you shopping there. So they're not necessarily being brutally honest about what's actually happened. It isn't all progress. For some people, it's great. You've got a newspaper, it's fabulous. But if you've got a trolley this big and you're sitting there trying to sort of process it, then for brutal honesty, I suppose.
Yeah, hilariously, whenever I buy alcohol-free drinks from the supermarket, I still have to have the over 18 or over 25 check, which I never fail. Yeah, that's made me laugh a lot this year. Okay, so deploying or getting leaders to understand how this technology should be deployed it's got to be a big focus of attention. And again, would there be any sort of hints or tips in how to tackle that for the leaders listening?
Like I've said, just listen. Just be really, really honest. Customers will eventually tell you what they really feel. There will need to be codes of ethics that are introduced, probably quite urgently, in terms of the right ways to use these, incredible, superpowered technologies. But if you're using your instinct as well as the insight that you're being shown and listening, you will make the right decisions.
Interesting. So if you had 10-15 minutes with a CEO of an organization, what would you tell them to focus on at the moment?
I mean, apart from, I don't really give the sort of trite answer, which is sort of customers. But I do believe that I don't like the word customer centricity, actually, because again, it's very easy to say, Collette, it's very, very easy to say that we're customer centric and people got a seat at the table and everyone's focused on customers, because it's too easy to say. I suppose that the difference between those businesses that start with the customer and those who don't is that they are brutally honest about what it means, what it actually means. It doesn't mean having 3 extra people in the insight department. It means an all-consuming passion for delighting customers, and putting as much focus, maybe more focus, into when things go wrong as opposed to when things go right. And and there are 2 kinds of businesses. There are those who start with the customer and those who don't, because they choose to start elsewhere.
That simple, is that black and white? That's actually, I suppose it is. So going back to having that conversation with the CEO, is there a quick win? Is there something they could go do or think about or implement tomorrow to really start thinking about the culture of making sure that the customer is right at the heart of what you do?
Acid test, if you like, is how you deal with complaints. The acid test of any service culture is how you deal with complaints. There are those who run towards the customer to learn from their mistakes, or complaints, and there are those who run away and hide. Hiding might mean hiding your phone number. So it's impossible to find a business. There was a time when the sort of received wisdom was that it's best let's just hide all ways of contacting our business, so we reduce contact and it's a bit cheaper for us. But that's not starting with the customer. That's just making life really difficult. Jet2, I talked about Jet2 earlier, know that they cannot control the skies. They cannot control the weather. They cannot control aviation strikes or disputes or turbulence and all this kind of stuff. But they can control their customers' headspace. So unlike many of their rival airlines who hide when things go wrong, then if you've ever been, trapped in Barcelona airport trying to get home and there's no information and you're on your own in the airport, scrabbling around in your phone trying to find out where the plane is, or whether there's a connection or anything like that. Jet2 run around the gates, the departure lounges, and check in on you. Collette, we know your flight's delayed. It's 2 hours. This is our plan. Have a bottle of water. There's someone on the other end. I've looked at your connections. Let's just check if there's anything else we can do for you. So they run towards the problem, as opposed to literally hiding. And that little team that wear red jackets, it is one of the things that's made them famous. So if you're looking for sort of a tip for leaders, is how do you deal with complaints? How do you deal with problems? And do you face into them directly, or do you hide?
So true, actually. It's so simply true, because if you have a personal problem, me personally, over many years learned that the quicker you face it down, the quicker you're on the road to sorting it out, rather than popping your head in the sand and just hoping it will go away.
So, and it is not rocket science, like I said, but somehow there's a belief in businesses that if they just hide, and there's no way to get in touch because all the channels kind of lead to nowhere, or just send the customer sort of spiraling around between departments, all of which, I don't know, it's not us, it's them. It's not us, it's them. That somehow it is going to go away, but it doesn't. It just leaves the customer disgruntled, holding a grudge, and potentially eventually just taking their business elsewhere if they can, or if they've got the energy to do it.
Yeah, if they can, and if they can't, then obviously they're just brand detractors. That's a term I've not used in a long time, but actually just talking down their terrible experience of working with that brand.
At every opportunity they get, at every opportunity they get, customers can be pretty pretty passionate. We can be passionate.
Yeah, and you're right, going back to that, how we behave, we're across however many social channels that we want to be. We're having conversations with our mates over food, over drinks. Yeah.
We tell on average.
That word in mouth has a massive impact.
Massive impact. Massive impact. We tell on average 10 to 15 people about a bad experience. There's a quote that I love in the book that that's attributed to somebody whose name I can't place, but it's that bad news has gone halfway around the world before good news has got her boots on. Bad news travels very, very fast. And men tell more people than women, apparently. Men get more angry about bad service than women do. Who knew?
Really?
Apparently. Surprised me as well, actually. But men can get more angry. There you go.
Very interesting. Actually, I do try and sort of have a policy of trying to leave positive reviews on things. If I have a great experience, I want to be the one congratulating, whatever that interaction is, rather than being the the detractor all the time. Just, yeah, I think great service is absolutely undermined, and I think surely the best example of, we've had great service, you just don't even realise it. You kind of popped out the other end and everything's been magical and marvellous, and you silently go about your business. Whereas as soon as something goes wrong, yeah, you're right, just having a complaint about it.
You must celebrate good service. We must
Yeah,
celebrate good service. Um,
yeah,
if only just for the person who's spent the time delivering it. So it means a lot. We all need recognition, whatever position you are. We all need recognition.
good advice. Good advice. So, your advice to leaders is sort of face down the bad news, the bad feedback, sort of run into it, and just try and start facing it down rather than ignoring it. And would you give any advice to our listeners about sort of, not over the horizon as such, but is there anything that, we've talked a bit about AI and technology and automations and things that are speeding potential customer service up? Is there anything that you'd get listeners to prepare for over the sort of coming months, years?
I think it's so going to dominate the conversation, and already is, that it's difficult to sort of almost see beyond it, really. I think there'll be far greater clarity on the role of certain channels. Everything's fairly cyclical in life, the truth is that the impact of technology, social media, and so on, has left us all more anxious than we've ever been. We're all alert. We're more selfish. We're more aware of time. We prioritize more ruthlessly. We get more annoyed when our time is wasted. So I think, this not only is that worth having in your mind, that it's quite hard to be a customer at the minute, because of this growing anxiety that we all have, because of the technologies, that we want release from it. We will increasingly want to release, because we'll recognize that actually our head is just full of swiping and liking and posting and, et cetera, and we want something that's the opposite. And what physical experiences do, I mean, we do live in an experience economy now. The amount of money that people will spend on experiences is outrageous. I think the average cost of the Taylor Swift Eras Tour package was $800, or, I mean, it was enormous. It was just enormous. So the point of that little anecdote was that if you're a business that works in the physical world, or you have channels like shops or showrooms or whatever they are, understanding the role they play in people's lives, which might be more interactional than transactional, that might be more illogical than logical, that might be more sensory than other more transactional places that we're living, will become important. So just, I suppose, being clearer and clearer on customer needs at different moments, and anticipating the needs we don't yet know we have. But it is my belief that this growing anxiety is not only bad for us, to be honest with you. I mean, you see on the tube, I don't know if you travel on the underground or on train. I mean, literally, I've got it here, it's that anxiety of, what am I missing? Or what do I need to do next? That will have an effect at some point. And the optimist in me thinks, well, it just means we'll just want different things than anxiety. We'll want validation and recognition and connection, but we'll want to connect maybe in different ways that are more, I suppose, more human. Maybe that's what I hope is going to happen rather than what will happen. I don't know. What do you think?
No, I agree, actually. I think So if you just going back to using AI or automation from a customer service perspective, I think, again, thinking about these LLMs and these agents that actually they understand Collette and that she likes blue dresses to go with green shoes, and you know she's much happier on a Friday than she is on a Monday, so interact this and send her actually they'll get to know me as an individual. So my worry is, should I be sharing more of that data, or should I be taking it away and holding it to myself? So I think the way that organizations will interact with us has got to shift, and I'm very naive. I know there's too much data about me out there, and I've been complicit. That cat's out of the box. But if it's to my benefit, where my travel is sorted, that my meetings are sorted, that I'm not having to worry about reading through reams and reams of notes to worry about my next meeting, if I'm freeing up all this time, then what can I spend that time doing? And therefore, taking those worries away from me, hopefully I'm less anxious and I'm more free to focus on nice things and experiences than the worry of my next set of meetings, or or my interaction with that particular brand. So it was a bit of a jumbled way of. I think you're right. My time is going to become more free, and how am I going to spend that?
Great. The problem with it is that we say we want more time to just be and ride horses or whatever floats your boat in the real world. But what we then do is that the time we've got, we then just go back on our phones and spend it swiping and liking and posting and whatever else. Even in physical shops, when we say we want more connection, or trains or planes or wherever else we are, when we're, say, at the checkout, we might still be on our phones. Even though we have a moment to have 30 seconds of human connection, we might still be just hold on a minute, hold on a minute, hold on a minute. So what we say we want and what we do and how we behave isn't the same, because the brave new world, it is very addictive. It's very, very addictive, and that addiction is growing.
Yeah, you're right, actually. So big tech has managed to hook us all in. Now it's about how long we're hooked in for, right?
So 100%, I'm addicted. I'm on the crack. I am addicted to it all, and I sometimes hate myself for it. I can suddenly have 45 minutes and I've just gone by and I've just been faffing and looking at videos of cats for sort of 10 minutes. Actually, I don't do that. I'm not that bad. As soon as I see a cat video or a dog video or something like that, I know how to not look at those. But I can suddenly think, God, I've been caught. I've been ensnared.
Yeah.
And then that wonderful time that I've got, precious time, I've just lost it.
We're of a generation that weren't raised with it. So think about the multi-generational aspect of this inside organizations that are then trying to service customers from different generations. I mean, there's a whole layer of complexity. The reason why that springs to mind is I took my son's smartphone off him for 3 months on the lead up to GCSEs because he wasn't doing what he should be doing. And that broke that relationship. He'd had it since he was 11 or something. That's kind of then all he's known. Taking the smartphone away from him, giving a flip phone so he could still communicate with his mates, made him a bit more savvy in how to communicate and what channels he could get to from his computer versus everything being at disposal in his hand. And I know it broke the relationship and that magic for a while. And now I'm a little happier that he's not completely and utterly and 100% reliant on it. He's got a bit more street smart about him. But not everybody has that opportunity.
And good for you. I mean, these are really difficult issues. Like everything, it's balanced. Technology has so got its place, but it's when you become reliant. It's the same with using AI to write your lectures or your essays. If you're at university, that big debate, that ultimately you are reliant on it. It's not actually you who's creating anymore. And the more sophisticated the technologies get, the more anyone can sort of do anything. But they are reliant on it. So are they doing it, or are they just pressing a button? It's fascinating. Mine's not a anti-technology agenda, Collette, yeah? Because once you give a customer something, they don't want to go back. They bank it. They move on to the next thing. They move forwards. They move in one direction. But there has to be balance, checks and balances that ensure that we are ultimately still human beings that are living full, expansive, rich, fulfilling, productive lives, full lives.
I was going to say, was there something else that I should have asked you that you would have liked to have said in this conversation?
No, nothing. No, I think you never know with these chats where it's going to go, do you really? But I think it's more interesting if you talk about, particularly in business conversations, they're far more interesting if you talk about feelings and real stuff, because we all still have them. And there's so many business books that give you a framework, but do you actually feel something at the end? And that's what I've tried to do ultimately in my produce, is to get people to feel different.
That's the point of these conversations. So bringing it to life, talking about it, no fluff zone, actually just unpacking what it is that what issue it is you're trying to help with. Okay, so talking about leadership, we've all got an anecdote about a bad leader that literally everybody will go, oh, there was this one time. Do you have any examples of where somebody has had a profoundly positive impact on your career?
Story in the book, actually, from my boss at John Lewis, my first boss at John Lewis, a man called Andy Street, went on to become the mayor of the West Midlands, very well-regarded business leader, who was the colonel-in-chief of empowerment. So he said, if you believe in it, fill your boots, but you are accountable and responsible for it. And so true empowerment, which comes with responsibilities. And when I was joining John Lewis, we were reaching the 150th anniversary of the business. It's a big story to tell. And this is a crown jewel, of British retailing. And as ever, I listened to the staff, and the staff said, we just don't want a bit of cake and some balloons. We want to do this properly. We want a proper, full-on party. And because it was 2012, 2013, they said, we want our own Olympics. We want our own Olympics. So that's what we did. We hired the NEC. We bussed 10,000 partners, employees. And we brought them all into the studio like an opening ceremony, shop by shop. Manchester, Oxford Street, Cardiff, the sorting offices, sourcing offices, the contact centres, the et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then gave them the show of their lives, which was all the Christmas ads brought to life and the history of the brand, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But that came with big responsibility, because obviously it wasn't a cheap event, but it was a noble, appropriate way to celebrate an icon reaching an important birthday. And what it left was a huge sensation of pride in the people who attended. And pride in your work, proud to work for a business that cares, is the great enabler. It's the driver of the extra mile. And I was allowed to do that because my boss, my good boss, trusted me.
Wow. There's an anecdote that's going to be hard to beat. Wow, that's amazing. So I don't know how many did you say 10,000 partners were there? So there's 10,000 memories, got millions of stories that must have been created from that day.
So, and the prize,
Amazing.
of the spectacle and of belonging to a different kind of organization gets taken back into the shop or the contact center, or the delivery van, or the curtains installer the next day at work. And the customer will have felt it. And the customer, Collette, will have felt it.
Amazing. Amazing. Peter, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you for having me on.